So this tutorial is all about letting the pelvic floor go, allowing the pelvic floor to stretch, allowing the hips to stretch. Really beneficial for during pregnancy, to kind of prepare the perineal area, the bit that I showed you earlier between the vaginal opening and the anus, to kind of get that used of that feeling of stretching and lengthening. And then after baby, really useful if there's been any episiotomies or any tears, to help lengthen and let that scar tissue stretch and release. Okay. Also just generally useful to kind of help you to feel more supple around the hips and the pelvis, which can in turn benefit the low back or the knees. And because we're going to be in positions for a significant amount of time, really nice to tune in with the breath, activate or increase the activity in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a nervous system that can allow us to calm down, de-stress, let go a little, if you've got the time to do so. So because I'm sitting here, we're going to start with one here. Now I've got 3 yoga blocks underneath my bottom, and they're kind of sort of like that size. Okay, you don't need to have blocks. You could sit on a couple of cushions, you could sit on a couple of books, and the idea is that the knees here are higher than the pelvis, or at least in line. And then we're going to take the hands inside the knees and then encourage these knees to open outward. And then in this position, it's a little bit like the belly breathing that we talked about before, for helping you to open your bowels, and just in general for a nice rhythmical type breath. So with a little bit of gentle pressure outwards here with the knees, we're going to breathe. So we breathe into the belly and then out. And it's kind of a sigh out almost to start with, but we're not trying to activate or tense the pelvic floor. So this is more about letting go. So it may not be for everybody. You can even come into this position with the hands, so with the prayer position, and that way they can kind of, it's a bit more passive, it's a little bit easier to hold those knees outwards. So keep going. So with every exhale, rather than what you maybe been working on in some of the other exercises about tensing the pelvic floor, you're really focusing on the visualizing of the widening and spreading of the bones apart, stretching of this perineal area. And when you inhale and the belly lifts outwards, notice almost a movement downwards, or a stretch of the pelvis and a stretch of the anus maybe is where you might be more aware of it. Just show you from the side. So don't be too worried about kind of having a real erect posture for this. Allow the back to round a little if that's your preference. And gradually, the longer you're here, you will start to feel that the hips come under a little bit of challenge. Keep going with your breathing. You will start to feel that you want to come out of the position and take a break from it, but stick with it, particularly prenatally. We really want to get the brain, get the body used to this sensation of maybe a kind of an uncomfortable stretch. And for some of you, if this feels really quite easy, you might get rid of the blocks altogether and come down into a deep squat like so. You might start to feel that this stretches a little onto the back. So we're making sure that it's not a pain in the back, but it is certainly a stretch. So we're like we're having a poo in the woods now. So we're breathing and just letting those hips go. So we have a good amount of time done in that position. And then you're going to take maybe 1 or 2 of your blocks and let the bottom come down. And then we'll work on what we would call in yoga Baddha Konasana, or bound angle, or maybe frog or butterfly, where the soles of the feet are together. I'll come back in. Okay. And the knees are sort of dropping out to the sides. Now, if you see here, my knees are higher than my hips because my hips are a little bit stiff, so I might decide to take a second block, second book, or a second cushion, whatever you're using. And then that feels a little bit more like I can kind of relax into it. You might choose to be still here, or you might want to work a little to try to open these feet apart. So as if you're opening a book, the big toes come apart, the little toe sides stay together. And it's still with this inhale breath to the belly. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the groins here get a stretch, this perineal area gets a stretch, the inner thigh muscles. You might even see about coming forward a little, pressing these elbows down into the knees a little more. And depending on what you have available to you, if you had lots of cushions or something, you could kind of pile the cushions up in front of the tummy. So that you can actually then take a rest here. Remember, it's not about tensing anything for this. It's very much about letting go. So releasing down the hips, letting the pelvic floor open and lengthening, and kind of let yourself go a little bit. Forget about the stuff that's happening outside the room. And come up. And then there's small little variants on this. You know, you might want to bring one foot in and then bring the other foot in. And sometimes this might be easier for the hips to tolerate, but you still have this kind of open groin position. And next, we're going to come to a blank wall, hopefully, that you have somewhere. If not, you could maybe rest the legs up against patio doors, or perhaps just even rest the legs over the edge of the bed. Of course, they won't be able to be straight up then, but you can rest them down over. So we've got a wall here, hopefully I'm going to fit. And we'll bring the bottom kind of sideways in first. And then swizzle yourself around so the legs are up the wall. Now, you might find that you need to put a headrest or something underneath your head here for it to be more comfortable on your neck, and then do so. So the legs are up the wall. Ideally, the bum is as close to the wall as possible. For some of you, this might mean that there is a little bit of a gap between your bum and the wall. And then from here, we're going to let the legs drop out to the side. So you're kind of opening them out in a V position. You'll start to notice the leggings pull. And again, we're looking for this inner thigh, this groin stretch. Let's place the hands on the tummy and the chest and let the eyes close. So as you inhale into the nose, the belly swells. And as you exhale, you do nothing. So we're not asking you to be too active in this posture. It's a variation on a yoga pose, legs up the wall. It's more just about letting the legs go. You definitely want to feel a stretch here. This does open and stretch and lengthen the pelvic floor and the perineum. So nice for preparation, or as I said, nice for that scar release. Belly breathing is lovely to lengthen and mobilize a C-section scar as well. And if you want to stay in this a little bit longer, you could press pause on the video there and stay, like up to 5 minutes would be really lovely in this position. And then from here we can do another variation of bound angle. So you've just done this in sitting. It tends to be a little bit easier to stay in when we have the legs on the wall like this, so the soles of the feet are together. The tailbone is lengthening down, the knees are opening outwards. Again, it's all about this openness and stretch in the groins. Or just like we did on the floor, you could put one leg in and then the other. And this is another variation. It's still got this openness. The knees and the feet being higher up than the heart really does help that nervous system and helps us to kind of de-stress and calm down and rest a little. If you're doing this variation where the legs are crossed over, you should certainly swap them so that the second leg to come in goes in first the next time. Always just letting go, releasing, softening. Again, press pause if you want to stay in this position a little longer. Now if you want to come onto your hands and your knees, with your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, your elbows are straight, the feet are flat on the floor, and we'll just work up and down through a cat stretch or a cat-cow, exhaling as we lift the belly up, the tailbone moves down, the head moves down, inhaling, extend, drop the chest, and look forwards. If the breath pattern feels to be a little bit kind of short for you, you could always breathe like this. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So you have 2 breaths each movement. So just to tilt the pelvis, release any stiffness or soreness, maybe in the back or in the pelvis, groins. Before then, we want to come to that shell stretch or child's pose position. So we tuck the tailbone under and start to move the bum towards the heels, and then start to reach your hands out in front and let your head come down. Perhaps this feels too stiff around the hips for you, so you maybe pop a cushion or something here so the bum comes down to that. The knees being further apart, if you feel that your kind of tummy is restricted from coming down on top of the legs, that would be really nice to do, particularly pregnancy. And maybe if the head or neck or shoulders feel stiff, you could actually use the cushion here underneath the head. And it may even be, because it's not about forcing things, this is really about finding a position that is comfortable. So if having the arms out straight feels too much on your shoulders, you could maybe just bend them and come to here. And again, it's that same inhale and sigh out, exhale pattern. Inhaling to the belly and exhaling, sighing out. The inhaling, stretching the pelvic floor. The exhaling, just letting go of things, not trying to tense anything. Maybe even having the hands here by your sides kind of might be more comfortable. So you will probably already sense that, you know, the bum is quite open and stretched out there, which is why it's a really nice position to put the perineum into, to prepare for babies, to stretch any adhesions that might be there afterwards, or just in general if you have a tendency maybe to hold tension. Hold tension maybe in there, or you might not know that, you might just feel it in general in your body, but these will really benefit all over. And then after you feel you've had enough time in that position, and again 5 minutes on all of these is quite good, so we're doing the videos a little bit quicker, but always press pause if you want to stay there. Slight variety or variation on it. The bum like comes up now to here above the hips. And then when you slide out, the bum is kind of left up in the air. And you see if I tilt my pelvis that way, that the back passage is going to be even more open. And I can let my head come down. Again, this head lower than the hips is nice and calming. If of course it feels that way for you, just because maybe I'm suggesting it, everybody might not feel like that. So that child's pose or shell stretch or puppy dog posture can also be useful if you do have any bladder pelvic organ prolapse, because gravity can help the movement of that. And just on that topic, although I'm not going to cover this for too long, for erectile prolapse, so for the back passage, this position, a bridge, can be useful to help the movement of that.